Please let me know if my background is loud.
Okay, I will let you know.
Okay.
Should I give you like a signal if it starts to get loud?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right, I'll do that. Okay, here we are again for another interview. Today we have Jhannel Tomlinson, who is a friend of mine that I met a few years ago because I saw that she was doing a lot of amazing work around climate change awareness and sharing what youth are doing in Jamaica for adaptation and organizing around it. So I'm really excited to have Jhannel here today. My name is Steven Snyder, and I'm one of the organizers for the program. And it will be great to hear from Jhannel about what she's doing. So take it away. Tell us what you do.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Stephen, for having me. I'm particularly excited to be a part of it today. So, I am a youth climate activist, not only in Jamaica, but Caribbean wide. So, I do a lot of work in advocacy, particularly with young people, especially those in rural communities, rural areas that are oftentimes left behind, not necessarily intentionally, but oftentimes just due to circumstances. So, I try to work a lot with these groups because they're some of the persons who are most anticipated or considered to be impacted by climate change and will continue to be impacted because their livelihoods and that of their families are so heavily dependent on agriculture. And that's one of the areas that we expect climate change to impact first, especially and in the kind of vulnerable spaces that these rural communities have to work in. So work heavily with young people. I work with farmers as well. So that brings me to the other side of me. I'm a PhD candidate doing work in rural Jamaica, specifically with farmers and farmers groups, looking at the opportunities as well as the challenges that they're currently facing and how they will have to adapt in the face of a changing climate. So, PhD candidate finalizing, thank God, as well as a youth climate activist, again, working across the Caribbean with young people, particularly those in rural areas. And that's just a quick summary.
That's really cool to hear. And I know that we've spoken before about the challenges that you have in like talking to like relating this climate science that you've learned and then communicating that to a rural farmer who may not know about that science but knows intricately well how the climate affects his crops. And I remember talking to you one time in Jamaica about how it's such a communication back and forth, right? Where
It
you're
is.
relating in the classroom and in your PhD program all of this knowledge that local farmers have on the how the
Mhm.
climate's affecting them. What's that like? What is that like working with your stakeholders?
So it's very different depending on the audience. So one of the things that I learned during my work is the importance of frames and framings and how you have to communicate differently depending on your target audience. So while when you're talking to say a private sector or public sector entity or stakeholder actor, you can always use your greenhouse gas jargons and you speak about emissions and you speak about blankets and all of that. When you speak to a farmer, you have to speak specifically in their language. You
Mm,
have to relay back to their everyday lives and livelihoods. So, for example, you go and say, oh, when greenhouse gases blanket the earth and trap heat, it may sound nice and it may sound amazing, but to a farmer, that does not translate much to him. That doesn't mean much to him. So what we have to do is tailor our messages specifically to them. So what we'll tell them is, okay, so you've been planting coffee for the past 10 years and we know how important timing is, particularly as it relates to rainfall and weather. So climate change is going to throw off that timing. It's going to mean that you're going to see later periods where there's going to be ripening, later periods where they're going to be blossoming on the trees, which will mean it's going to push back your reaping, push back your income, and essentially you're going to have to maybe deal with more temperature and climate related diseases. So we have to bring it back to their realities, the things that
mm,
they can relate to specifically, rather than using all these technical terms which pretty much often flies over their head. So for us that work in the space, that do research in the space, how we communicate is very different depending on your audience. And again, when you look at young people, while you can do a mixture, again, you can't get too technical because for many of them, they have heard of climate change, but they can't
mm,
necessarily get down to the science of it. So they can tell you that, oh, they know it's because humans are emitting more, and we have more industries and fossil fuels and burning and all of that. But when you get down to the science of it and all of that, that's as far as they go. So for us, again, it's important to kind of relate it to say, okay, we know you guys enjoy going to the beach, but what are the things that we see happening is that with climate change, there's potentially sea level rise. With
Mm,
climate change, we know that droughts are going to pretty much affect a lot of the fruits and vegetables that you like to eat. It's going to affect the pricing. It's going to affect the supply of different foods. So again, relating it to just the person's everyday experiences, things that they can relate to, has been the most effective way of conveying the messages and highlighting what can be done and can't be done. And pretty much that just has to have been the approach, and that's the approach that we have been using thus far.
very cool. Yeah, I resonate with that. Of
Yeah,
communicating that language. Like my background is in finance, and
yeah,
learning about sustainability, I'm learning a completely different language, and
yeah.
communicating that to my network is a challenge. So why is it though that you're like so motivated in these two communities?
So specifically, I work across a host of different communities, to be
Okay.
honest. But rural communities, I think, are very important because, okay, so I started doing the MPhil a couple of years ago, and going into the space, it was primarily looking at interventions and innovations geared towards adaptation and farmers, and seeing what practices they can adapt, what will help in conservation, stuff like that. But then going in, oftentimes you go in with one thought, and then so many different things arise. So going into those communities, I recognize that a lot of the young people, they could tell you that they are recognizing changes in temperature, changes in the general overall patterns. They tell you that they recognize that things they could almost predict to a T the rainy months and when it's going to rain, but they realize that's become more variable. So they can in fact tell you that there have been changes, but I
Hmm.
think that that's as much as they knew. So I recognized that there was a gap that needed to be filled. And another one of my colleagues, Aisha Constable, she was doing work as well, and that was something that she had recognized in her work as well. The kind of need to bring rural youth into the space and build education, knowledge, awareness, and kind of get them involved as agents of change, as young environmental stewards and stuff like that. So I think that's what pretty much propelled me into that area. And the
Mm,
more I recognized that a lot of the interventions and programs were concentrated in Kingston and in urban areas, it even highlighted again the challenges that youth from those areas faced, and recognizing that, oh, if they wanted to attend a conference, they'd have to come to Kingston. And we know the transportation challenges and barriers that poses. So it's kind of looking and recognizing that, okay, these youth are vulnerable. Their parents depend heavily on agriculture. Agriculture is so impacted by climate variability. So we have to get these youth involved. We have to ensure that they're a part of the conversation moving forward. So I think that's pretty much what kind of got me into the whole area of rural youth and just the overall engagement with them.
yeah, 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 that's really cool. And I totally recognize that. Also growing up in rural Manchester, right? You see how important that breadbasket is to those communities. And,
It,
it's amazing to see that wealth of knowledge, and being able to help protect and provide for those communities is something amazing that you're doing to help with that. Have you encountered any challenges? Like what is something that is related to your own leadership that you weren't expecting
Mhm.
to face when starting down this path?
Personally, so initially when I started out, I was doing it because it's something I was passionate about. And to be honest with you, I would not say that I've encountered any insurmountable challenges, like challenges that I could not have been able to address, because to be honest, there's a very supportive space in Jamaica with young people who are
Mm,
venturing into the whole advocacy and awareness. So the thing is, it's very easy to have them on board. It's very easy to kind of pool efforts and kind of collaborate and communicate in these different efforts, as well as the climate change division and the UNDP. They're also very accommodating. So they will come on board with a lot of the stuff that we want to do. They often have ideas that they want to bring forward, and they engage us. So to be honest, as it relates to challenges, I can't say that there have been challenges that have been disheartening or anything that
mm,
has made me kind of want to reconsider. Because to be honest, while I do recognize that from a Caribbean perspective, representation is lacking on in the global space. I do think that increasingly it's growing and young people are encouraging each other. And there are other stakeholders that I already mentioned, including the CCD and UNDP, who are always there to support. If I would say that there's a challenge, I'd say that probably oftentimes a lot of young people do feel as if sometimes their engagement is more tokenistic,
Mm,
just to say that you have youth representation, but that they don't think that in the long run their probably views and concerns are given as much consideration. Personally, I can say that we have been given the space, and I'm not sure if it's because maybe some of us are more immersed or have been in the space longer while we're probably being given that opportunity. But personally, there are young people who have expressed in the past that they feel that the engagement is somewhat tokenistic because they're not
mm.
sure if their views are being considered for, say, policies or programs moving forward. But from my perspective, I must say that I'm happy for the engagement and the opportunities that are being provided currently.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm seeing that as well. There's a lot of activism happening within our generation and even younger than that, right? A lot of youth getting aware and creating Facebook pages or Instagram pages to share what they're learning or organizing within their groups. And it's kind of a challenge for us, right? Because we do want our voices heard and we do
Yeah,
want the adults in the room, the people with power to listen to us, but we have to prove ourselves as like
I agree.
activists and we have to do the hard work to get our
I
foot at the table. So
I agree.
um
We have to show that we mean business.
yeah, and you know, you've been working at this a long time.
Mhm.
Where do you see you going with this, like, you know, as you continue to get your feet at the table?
Right. So I do know that for a lot of these, they consider youth to be 35 years and younger.
Mhm.
And in other spaces, now you're seeing 27, 29. So I'm currently 28, transitioning to 29. So I may not be considered a youth anymore in some spaces.
Mm.
However, I still want to continue in the space, whether as an advisor, as a mentor, as somebody who is helping to, bring up that other generation or the younger generation of activists who will continue on a lot of the work that we have started. Because at the end of the day, while we may have been some of the ones who were instrumental in the beginning or seeing it come to fruition, we have to ensure that the momentum continues, that more young people want to become involved, more young people want to become engaged. So personally, I want to continue to, act as a mentor, assist with different programs, initiatives, and just being that advisory role, even when I'm no longer young and more of a mature youth. So
Hmm.
that's what
Yeah,
I hope for moving
yeah,
forward.
and I'm sure it's paying back, right? You've had a lot of mentors who have helped to get you to this
I
point,
have,
and
I have, and continue, and a lot of them continue to come on board, as moving away from not necessarily just the volunteerism, but wanting to be a professional in the space. So there are
mhm.
individuals who will come on to offer guidance and offer support, and I'm very grateful for that. So I have to pay it forward when the time comes.
Yeah, yeah, that's so great to hear. And I love how you're doing that with your communities. So we're getting to the end of our interview here. To wrap it up, I'd love for you to share some words to inspire other leaders to, um, you know, what would you leave us with to encourage those leaders on their journey?
So I'll share with you an experience that I had, or two experiences rather. So I received the Prime Minister's Youth Award last year for environmental protection, and I remember after the event, a young lady came up to me and she was like, "Oh, I thought awards like these were reserved for persons in like certain areas
Hmm.
because I'm from rural Jamaica." So for her, she thought that as a rural person, you were maybe not offered the opportunity, or you would not have been given the space to be able to step up and to be able to receive such an award. So for her, she saw this as motivation. She saw it as, oh wow, but if Jhannel from this community in rural Jamaica can step up and receive a national award, then I can do it too. So for me, activists such as ourselves, while we do it because we love it, there are also other young people looking on and looking to us for inspiration, looking to us for motivation, and seeing us as persons who they want to be able to adapt some of the things that we are doing. So for me, for upcoming activists, irrespective of the challenges, irrespective of the constraints, whether it be political, whether it be from individuals in the space that you're working with, if not us, then who? We have
Mm,
this world to inherit. We are the ones who pretty much are contributing minimally, but are the ones who inherit a space that we have no choice to live in. So at the end of the day, if we don't step up, if we don't take on the mantle, if we don't decide that, you know what, we have to do what we can do with the little resources that we have, where we are, with whoever we're there with, then at the end of the day, we can't sit back and allow different things to happen and then say, oh, if I knew, I would have acted sooner. So I do think that it's our responsibility to work with persons who, have a similar mindset, and just to see how best we can do what we can with the little time we have. So we have to persevere. And I always talk about the three C's: communication, collaboration, and cohesion as we move forward.
mm.
And for me, those three things are particularly critical. So I think my message is we have to do what we can where we are with the resources we have, and we just have to keep the momentum going.
I love it. Those are some great words to end with, Jhannel. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me today, and your
Thank you for
inspiring
having me.
words. Yeah, of course. And to everyone, I hope you can check out the other videos, and we'll see you during the live discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. So they'll cut it here. And
Okay.
then one thing I was asking is if you want to say like 10 seconds, like kind of just what you ended with as like
Okay.
a sound bite.
Yeah.
We're doing that with some of the recordings. Um,
Okay.
so I will be quiet for a little bit, and then you can sort of like say like, hey, my name is Jhannel, and I encourage you to do this program because whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi everyone, Jhannel Tomlinson from Jamaica here, and I'm encouraging you to tune in and be a part of this program as we seek to share, learn, and collaborate with each other. Let's do this for our planet.
Awesome. That was great. Thank you. All right. They'll cut that and put that in. And when it gets all posted, I'll be sure to let you know and we'll tag it.
Perfect. How are
Yeah.
things on your side though? How's it
Ah,
going?
going well. I have one last semester this semester with my classes. And then next semester, I do my capstone. So
Okay.
yeah, busy, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm still here in Boston. My sister moved in with my mom. So like there's
Okay.
not much space there anymore. So I'm just gonna stay here until maybe
Okay.
Christmas. Yeah, and maybe
Okay.
I'll come down if things are a little better by then.
Hopefully, let's hope,
Yeah.
because keep my fingers crossed, a lot has been happening, but I think Andrew has been trying to see how best he can, put in the different measures and stuff, but we have to keep our fingers crossed because everybody wants to have a COVID-free Christmas.
Yeah. Hopefully. I'm gonna pray for it.
Thank you, Stephen. And you can always reach out to me. I'm here.
Yeah, I appreciate. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Take care. You too. Bye bye.
Bye.